In the golden dawn of history, when empires rose and fell like waves on an endless sea, there was a young man whose ambition was larger than the world itself. His name was Alexander of Macedon, but the world would remember him as Alexander the Great. He was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of the small but fierce kingdom of Macedonia. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant strategist and conqueror who transformed Macedonia into a powerful military force. His mother, Olympias, was passionate, spiritual, and told young Alexander from an early age that he was no ordinary boy, that he was descended from Achilles, the legendary hero of Troy. From the moment he could walk, Alexander was fascinated by stories of warriors, gods, and glory. His eyes would light up when tales of Achilles, Hercules, and the great heroes of Greece were told. At age 13, his father hired Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers in history, to be his tutor. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander studied philosophy, politics, science, and the art of reasoning. But more importantly, he learned the nature of human greatness. Aristotle taught him that a true leader must understand not only war, but wisdom, not only conquest, but justice. By the time Alexander turned 16, he was already commanding troops. When his father left for a campaign, Alexander crushed a local rebellion and founded a new city, naming it Alexandropolis. It was the first of many cities that would bear his name. But destiny is never simple. In 336 BC, King Philip was assassinated during a wedding celebration. The court was thrown into chaos. Some suspected Alexander's mother, others whispered that Alexander himself had a hand in it, but the truth was lost in the shadows of history. What mattered was that, at only 20 years old, Alexander ascended to the throne. Rivals and rebels saw his youth as weakness. Greek city-states rose up thinking they could break free. But Alexander acted swiftly. He led his army south, crushed the rebellion in Thebes, and burned the city to the ground, sparing only its temples and the house of the poet Pindar. The message was clear. Alexander was not a boy on the throne. He was a king to be feared. With Greece united under his command, Alexander turned his gaze east, toward the mighty Persian Empire, the greatest power on earth. Persia stretched from the Aegean Sea to India, ruled by King Darius III. For centuries, Persia had dominated the world, but Alexander believed it was his destiny to conquer it. In the spring of 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont, modern-day Dardanelles, with an army of about 40,000 men. Before stepping onto Asian soil, he took a moment, threw a spear into the ground, and declared, "Asia shall be won by the sword." The first great clash came at the Battle of the Granicus River. Against the odds, Alexander led his cavalry straight across the river under a storm of arrows. His helmet gleamed in the sun as he charged directly into the Persian line. He fought with the ferocity of Achilles himself, cutting through enemy ranks until the Persians broke and fled. Asia Minor was now his. City after city opened its gates to him. Yet Alexander wasn't just a conqueror. He was a visionary. He treated captured cities not as slaves, but as future allies. He often spared their rulers, respected their customs, and built temples to their gods. To the Greeks, he was spreading civilization. To the Persians, he was a foreign invader, but one who understood them. In 333 BC, he faced Darius himself at Issus. From there, Alexander marched south to conquer the Phoenician cities and then the ancient land of Egypt, where he was hailed as a liberator from Persian rule. In Egypt, he founded one of his greatest legacies, the city of Alexandria, destined to become the center of knowledge and culture for centuries to come. At the temple of Amun in the Siwa oasis, the priests greeted him as the son of Zeus. Whether he believed it or not, Alexander began to see himself as more than mortal. Then came his greatest test, the Battle of Gaugamela, in 331 BC. It was the ultimate showdown between Alexander and Darius. The Persian army was enormous, stretching across miles, with war elephants and scythed chariots glinting in the sunlight. Darius believed victory was certain. But Alexander, calm and composed, waited for the perfect moment. He feigned a retreat, luring the Persians out of formation. Then, like lightning, he and his companion cavalry struck at the heart of the enemy line. Darius once again fled, and the Persian Empire collapsed. Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, the jewels of Persia, fell into Alexander's hands. At Persepolis, he gazed upon the palace of the great kings, a symbol of centuries of Persian power. In a night of drunken celebration, the city was burned, some say by accident, others by Alexander's command, as vengeance for the Persian destruction of Athens. Now, he was king of Asia, ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen. But his hunger was not satisfied. He turned east again, toward the mysterious lands of India, where legends spoke of endless riches and powerful kings. In 326 BC, after years of relentless campaigning, Alexander's army reached the Indus Valley. There he faced King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes River. The battle was fierce, fought under torrential rain. Porus brought war elephants that terrified the Macedonian horses, but Alexander's tactics prevailed once more. When Porus was captured, Alexander asked him, "How should I treat you?" The Indian king replied, "Like a king." Impressed by his bravery, Alexander not only spared him, but made him an ally. Yet, as the army marched deeper into India, the men began to tire. They had been fighting for over 8 years, thousands of miles from home. Their armor was worn, their faces aged by war. When Alexander urged them to keep marching east, toward the end of the world, his soldiers finally refused. Tears filled his eyes, but he knew they could go no further. He turned back. On the return journey, tragedy struck again and again. Many men died crossing the scorching Gedrosian desert. Alexander himself became ill, possibly poisoned or weakened by years of wounds and exhaustion. In Babylon, in 323 BC, at just 32 years old, Alexander the Great died. His final words were hauntingly ambiguous. When asked who should inherit his empire, he whispered, "To the strongest." With his death, his vast empire shattered into pieces, divided among his generals, the Diadochi. Yet his legend endured. He had conquered more of the known world than anyone before him. He had founded over 70 cities, spread Greek culture from Egypt to India, and inspired generations of leaders, from Caesar to Napoleon. But perhaps the greatest legacy of Alexander lies not in his empire, but in his vision, the idea that the world could be united under one rule, one culture, and one destiny. He blended East and West, married a Persian princess, and encouraged his men to do the same. He believed that greatness was not defined by birth, but by courage, vision, and the will to act. Centuries have passed, and his empire has long turned to dust. But the name Alexander the Great still echoes through time, a symbol of ambition without limits, a man who saw the world not as it was, but as it could be. He lived fast, conquered everything, and died young, leaving behind a question that still haunts history. Was Alexander truly great, or simply the most brilliant conqueror of them all? What cannot be denied is this: in an age of kings, he became a legend. And legends, unlike empires, never die.